Welcome to our future. This is a very special talk. I'm so excited to share with you the thoughts and the experiences of someone who has influenced me at a deep, deep level. Someone that's repeatedly pointed out things that areas where I need to grow in my own practice and in my own life. And someone that, inspires me with the scale at which he thinks, with the rigor at which he approaches things, and the passion and jovial nature he brings to his everyday life. I always love learning from Darren Doherty, and I'm always inspired by him. If you do not know about Regrarians Limited, this is so important. You should check out the Rex. You should check out everything. Regrarians, is it regrarians.com?
.org.
.org. It's an
O-R.
organization.
Mm.
And so
Well, Matt, in 19, what's it, 1997, my old mate Ben Boxall, who's a forest scientist, and we had a whole group of us, and like you do when you're in your 20s, late 20s. Yeah, I was just 30 then, yeah. Anyway, we went down to Melbourne because back then you had to drive to register a business name, and we walked in and we walked into this office, the Bureau of Business Name Registration, wood paneling, sort of very British. Anyway, we go in there and we say to the guy, "We want to register the Department of Permaculture." And the guy looked back at us like we'd filled out the form and everything, handed it over with our fee, our check. And the guy said, "I'm afraid, sir, we won't be able to give you that business name because you might get confused with the government." I said, "Oh, really?" And then, so we scampered back outside, went out to a phone box because back then mobile phones weren't as ubiquitous as they are now. Called out the other people in it, and we we started something called the Permaculture Organization. So that was the real first organization that we created. That lasted for about two or 3 years. We did a really great job. It was me, a GIS guy, and who had a really fast Pentium 90 with a 15-inch monitor. It was and we had a 28.8 MPS modem, and was it M? I don't even know if it was M or what it would have been, a smaller derivation. And we had a phone and a fax machine and a printer and a few desks and lots of projects and lots of hope. And off we went and developed a whole bunch of we had, oh sorry, I was going to say we had a couple of foresters, and we had a small nursery which had set up in our tree crops nursery, which had set up, and that was really fun. And I think about that time because that was quite foundational in terms of the organizations that we need. And we were talking just prior to being on air about disagreeableness and how important it is to maintain relationships by being comfortable with having a degree of uncomfortable or disagreeable conversations, as well as a higher proportion of agreeable conversations, is something that's important to get along. And now I come to this project here in India, where I'm now pretty well ensconced. I haven't done a project for 20 years. Last project I did was in Vietnam, nearly 20 years ago in February, when I was working for Mars Incorporated in the World Cacao Foundation, doing the sustainable cacao agroforestry system. And so then I went back into teaching thanks to Bill Mollison. Bill Mollison actually got me that job. He introduced me to Howard Yana Shapiro, who was the founder of Seeds of Change in New Mexico. And then he got headhunted by Mars to become their director of plant science and external research. So anyway, the world is fun. And so this project has come about because an old friend of mine, who's an interesting chap in himself, Tom Duncan, he's the CEO of a company called Earthbank, which is the parent company of who we're working for here. Tom and I go back 25 years or so. I think Tom's probably 10 years younger than me, maybe less. And I first met him because he was into integrated wastewater systems. This is probably 25 years ago, and I'd come across a precursor to, or the main inspiration for Gunter Pauli and his Blue Planet ideas was a Chinese, a Mauritian Chinese fellow called Dr. George Chan, who was an environmental engineer, and he came up with this whole super integrated farming system of the type that I've never seen, and I don't think it has ever been resolved. But he actually did that, and Tom was working with him as a young fella in China and elsewhere. So, and Tom got the manuscript to his book, which has never been published. But I've got a copy of it as well. So there's all of these things that go way, way back in my life to then. And then Tom and I have worked on a few projects together which are related. We probably the most recent was of any substance was some micro or some on-farm abattoir wastewater treatment systems. And also I had this idea of what I call paddock to paddock, which was a nutrient. So I was working for Mike Callicrate of the Callicrate Cattle Company in St. Francis, Kansas, which is right. It's only 4 hours from the Colorado border. And Mike is an on-farm abattoir. He's one of the pioneers of on-farm processing in the United States and the world. And we talked about this type of thing. You know, what are you doing with all your waste streams? You know, because there's always, when you do an abattoir, there's lots of water and it's got a high nutrient loading. You've got guts and you've got this and you've got, you know, all the rest of it. So I called Tom up and he helped me with that, and we developed the paddock to paddock system for abattoirs, which basically is a flow chart which shows where all of the nutrient flows, and then what products might they turn into. Some of which will go back onto the farm. Some of them like soap, tallow. So Mike's got a tallow business now, a tallow soap business, right? So as a result of that analysis, he's also got a bone char business because we decided, what are we going to do with the bones? Well, he'd already had a bone broth business. We then took the bones from the bone broth, charred them, and then they get returned to the land, and he also sells them. So there was all of those things that Tom and I sort of went through, and then that inspired the likes of Mike, and we, you know, we've passed that on to other people who we work with who've got, you know, on-farm chicken abattoirs and those sorts of things as well. So Tom called me up when we were in Italy in 2019, and he was in Switzerland. I couldn't go to the conference, but that was when he was just getting this company up and running. And then in, I think, about June last year, he called me up and said, "Hey, I need to talk to you about how we plant 8.6 million trees in a year." And I went, "Yeah, I think we probably need to mechanize a bit." So that started that conversation, and I came here in August, and so we're doing a project which we're planting We did a pilot planting last year to get things started, and it's a very much a collaboration. The project's called Regeneration Meghalaya. So Meghalaya is one of the 7 sisters states in the northeast of India. It's directly above Bangladesh. It's the southern border of this is Bangladesh. So Meghalaya was a part of the state of Assam up until 1972, and it held the capital, which is Shillong, which is where I am now. And Shillong was also one of the key outposts of the East India Company, of the infamous East India Company, whose headquarters is just down the road, which is a place called Cherrapunji. And Cherrapunji is the wettest place on earth. It gets 25 metres of rain a year. Well, that's the record, and it gets on average 12 metres of rain a year. So bloody wet. It holds all of the records. So we're here, and the project is working with a subsidiary of the Hill Farmers Union, which has got a shiitake mushroom project with farmers, growing that as a commodity to sell to contract to Japan. We're also we've got working with Worldview Impact, who are a local non-profit who particularly work with women in agriculture, with the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare, which is what the ministry is called here, and a few other organisations that we're involved with as the Earth Tree India company, Earth Tree Enviro India Private Limited company. So I'm the director of agroforestry design and agricultural technology. And this has all happened very, very quickly. And now I'm in this beautiful building, and you can't, I might lift it up a little bit, but you can see the ceiling is all parquetry using one of the main species that we're growing here, which is called Cussie pine. So the Khasi peoples, Meghalaya is made up predominantly of Khasi, Jantia, Garo, and Reboy people. The Khasi are the main people, and they're all, particularly the Khasi, they're matrilinear in their succession. So property passes from mother to youngest daughter. It's a very and it's a tribal state, and the tribes have a very, very strong. So we have to work with tribal chiefs and all of that sort of thing. It's a very, very interesting project.
Mm.
Probably got a bit more complexity than I would do as a startup, but not my choice, and things work out that way. But it's a wonderful bunch of people, and going back to the original theme, we do have disagreements, and it's good, and there's a maturity within the organisation and the folk that we can do that and keep going, which is great. Um, which, going back to my 20s when we started up the permaculture organisation, I don't think we were quite at that level of maturity yet. So when we had our tiffs, that was the end of it. Anyway, we're all friends today, so that's the most important thing. So
So
there you go, Matt.
So speaking of some of these things that you're working on, innovating and creating to serve this need of getting these trees in, one of the things that my regenerative soil, regenerative microscopy, mycology brain kind of thinks about is, are these ecto or are these endo like trees that we're focusing on, or is it a blend? And are you inoculating them with the specific mycorrhizae as they go in?
Yeah, I couldn't answer the first question definitively, but I would say probably mostly ecto. My role, because we have a bunch of departments, we have a nursery department. So Dr. Surya Gunjal, who's a 62-year-old fantastic fellow who's worked all across India within universities, he's in control of all of the mycorrhizal production, all of so the nurseries. One of the things that I suggested when we started was because most people around the world grow, especially in the so-called developing world, if there's trees grown in nurseries, they grow them in single-use poly bags,
Mm.
and they're usually and they're grown on the ground, so they flatten a bit of area, and they use native soil in these. So anyone who's grown trees knows that if you put soil into a relatively closed container, it's probably not going. Plants are not going to have a great life.
Yeah.
It's just not a good medium. So because most soils themselves are not in a good shape, right? So putting it into a closed bag, and it's not going to go so well. Anyway, that's how most people get by, and just because of the sheer number of plants involved and the supply chain. I mean, it becomes an inventory. When you get to this sort of scale, it just becomes an inventory management dilemma. It's as much of what you do is thinking about logistics as anything else. Um, so I suggested that we consider using BCC, which is a Swedish company, so probably the biggest forestry container, growing container company in the world. They have what's called a HICO system. I've used HICOs. Yes, they're probably the most commonly used container. They're a root trainer container, air prune container for growing trees in around the world. And there's lots of knockoffs, right? So lots of people have copied them now. It's out of patent. So I suggested, look, if we're going to do this, because the other thing is when you grow trees in these polybags, the polybags are quite big. So therefore the nurseries take up a lot of space because it becomes a spatial. If you're growing 500 trees, 1,000, 10,000 trees, not so bad. But if you're growing millions,
Yeah.
right? All of these little 10, 4-inch diameter pots take up a shitload of space. So, and this is really hilly terrain here. Finding a flat area is really challenging, right? That hasn't been developed. So I suggested that. And then that led us to also considering, or what's the medium being put. So we're using a cocoa peat. Coconuts are abundant in India, and there's lots of it, of the compressed cocoa peat product. This is a big rice growing area, the whole northeast. So we're using rice hulls, and we carbonize those. So we're using a mixture of carbonized rice hulls and don't ask me what the ratio is, Matt, because I knew you were going to.
Tell me getting
Sorry,
excited.
folks. Can't give away all the trade secrets. I don't know, actually. I'll tell you if I knew, but I can't remember. And so that's so we have a facility, place called Soyong. Soyong is the Kasi word for Prunus napaliensis, which is one of the trees that we're growing, which is the Nepal cherry. It's a beautiful little cherry. It's got a stone. You make wine out of it. Yeah. Anyway, it's called the Soyong. We've got a workshop and fabrication center, and we make our own potting mix out there, which then gets distributed to 24 farm nurseries that we've set up since August last year, who are now, as a result of all of these supply chain things being put in place. Well, at last count, so I led a nursery training on the 28th of August, and by now I think we're up to about 5 million trees in production, all grown on bamboo tables, suspending these beautifully Indian-made, part recycled plastic root trainers. They're fantastic. I just saw
It's
some photos
amazing.
of some mulberries, white mulberry. I think we're planting 4 or 4.5 million white mulberries this year, and yeah, it's cool. Yeah, they're in a 300 cc root trainer, and I saw some photos of some yesterday that are growing at a nursery at Reboy district, and they're just so beautiful. Even some of them have got little fruit on them, so they're grown from cuttings. Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, just even that, think of, oh yeah, I want to grow some mulberries from cuttings, right? Well, oh, you want to grow 5 million? That's a lot of, sourcing of all of that plant material, which you then have to get to somewhere.
In a
Or
timely fashion.
box grade it, make sure it's the right shape, size, not too big, not too small, blah blah blah. It's a massive undertaking. So of course there has to be a hierarchy that organises that, and thank goodness for those above me, the likes of Tom and his wife Chow and others who have done just an amazing job in pulling something like this together, along with the local partners. It's quite an incredible undertaking, and yeah. So yes, so many details, my friend. My head is spinning. Just I haven't really talked to many people about it, so it's probably a good opportunity to refresh myself on just what's going on, because
Heck yeah.
it's pretty manic. So my job as my agroforestry design is one bit. That's kind of easy because I've got our team. Our son Zane is on board with us now, so they're working in. They're working. Zane's in Australia. My longtime partner Georgie Pavlov's in Finland, and I've brought both of them in. So they're now doing all that. We've got a 17-point workflow that we've developed for the agroforestry design. So we've got 26,000 hectares of 1 meter 1 meter per pixel digital elevation model data for the entire project area. And so they've done the slope analysis on that, because the slope analysis then tells us what machines can be used? Can it be mechanized doing this? Can it be mechanized doing that? Does it need to be hand? Do we need to prepare soil pits by hand and so on? So there's all of those parts. So we're working our way through that now, but they've done that. So there's design of workflows. But then I'm doing things like plant transport, so I get back to my roots of, a bit of graph paper, right? And my pen, my trusty Staedtler pen an eraser and a scale ruler, and off we go, right? And then I've got a lady who does the CAD design if we need to. We've designed plows. We've got a whole new. I'm very. It's outside of probably Propagate, who I'm a strategic advisor to, Harry and Jeremy and so on. This project is probably the only project that's actually put R&D funding into mechanizing agroforestry projects in a serious way. So I've got I'm the head of a whole department of agroforestry design, ag tech. And the ag tech thing, with my background for a long time in tinkering, I won't go any more than that. It's thought and built and tinkered with a whole bunch of different machines, which spread the love of that hard won diesel just that bit further, right? Because it is, there's lots of lives that have been lost and still are, wars fought, all the rest of it to power our economy. So the least we could do is pay a homage by making it go further. So that we're doing that with machinery and all those holes in the ground from all that iron ore and all these resources. You got to be serious about it. So that's part of my motivation to use those materials for good. So we've designed, which I cannot show you because these are super secret and they're super fucking cool. I'll just put it that way. I've designed some. Designed a really yeah, designed a really kick-ass machine. I'm going out there probably today. I got this gear from Italy that we imported, and they didn't supply the bolts which connect them to another bit. So I got these bolts yesterday at a local market. They're 1 inch by I think these are 9 inch bolts. So I got these yesterday. So I'm going to go out after I talk to you. I'm going to get on my Royal Enfield Himalayan, the first version, and ride out. That's why I've got my motorcycle jacket on.
I like it.
And I'm going to head out to Umsoyong and connect things together. It's very exciting, and then we'll commission those, and we'll be able to do ground preparation of the type and at the speed that's never been done before. So I'm very excited about that. And what would interest you, Matt, is where we're integrating into that biofertilizer injection, mycorrhiza injection, all of those sorts of things. So there'll be all of those elements which, when you put your soil geek hat on, well, Regen's,
It's
what's your book called? Regenerative
easy.
soil hat on. When you put that sort of stuff on, well, then you start to think about the possibilities. A tractor can carry a lot of stuff. I want weight at the front, so I'm going to put a big biofertilizer tank to counterbalance the weight of the machinery at the back. So there's all this fun stuff to engineer.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Anyway, I'm getting that opportunity. It's funny because the Rex program, which you mentioned earlier, has been going along really nicely. I think I've told you before. I mean, we've never had, we shifted over to a membership model in 2017. We've never had as stable a business as we've had. Even through COVID, it was bulletproof. And with thanks to all of the members that we've got and so on, and the online Rex program, it's been really great. But there's been a safety in that, and it's funny because I think in about June, I was talking to Zane, our son, saying, "Oh yeah, I wouldn't mind," because he came on board. He said, "Oh, can I start working for you?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And you're gonna, I'll send you off to start with Georgie. So he's been working with Georgie. But I said to him, look, I'd love to get back into development again because I really love doing development work. And I said, I wouldn't mind getting back into that, before too long. And, I think sometimes when you think things that manifest into something that's about to happen, fortunately, because I wasn't quite expecting to go from, not 0 to 100, 0 to 8 million, right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to get back into doing a bit of farm planning and go out, get the team, get the boys back together, sort of job, work around town. But anyway, life's fun,
I love that.
and
How do
I
you
do pray, and I am thankful. So yeah, as I was joking to the people the other day, in this polytheistic society, it's mostly Christian up here, but I got down on my knees and um, did the Buddha, did the Namaste, did the whole viso. So and crossed my chest and thanked our Lord. So yeah, I'll give everyone a go.
I love it. So, speaking of those kinds of modalities, do you have like a
hmm
routine? Because a
hmm
lot of this
hmm
week we've been talking to folks about their routine and the thing that they do. Ooh, what's this?
This. Well, this is my preferred brand. It's the Rhodia notebook. It's a dot. I don't know if you can really see that. Can you see the little dots? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the dot graph.
It's a dot grid. Yeah. So I probably just shared confidential material. But anyway,
It was too
no one will
polite.
be able to
Okay.
decide. So my routine is well, it starts with a personal routine. So here, Lisa wasn't able to come with me, as you know. So 'cause our eldest daughter had an accident, needed surgery, so which she's recovering from, thank goodness. But my routine is I get up quite early, and 5 or so usually, and then I do exercises. I started because I've got what's called farmer's back, because one of the results of being a contractor is back in my 20s and 30s was lifting a lot of things and not generally lifting them well. So I haven't got anything problematic, so they tell me, so the practitioners tell me, but I do need to I need to do a regime of stretches and exercises and so on. So I do those. I just invested in some resistance bands because I'm 56 now, and so as you go, if you're fortunate enough to live a long time, then you realise that there's phases of your life. So I realised, when I was about 45, my metabolism changed. I started to be just like in livestock. I mean, I think of livestock. I go, yep, I've got more fat coverage and probably more intramuscular fat, like a 5-year-old cow would, right? Um, so, um, so I switched my diet a bit and so on. Yeah, I went from my weight as a probably 20s, 30s, 40s of being around 85 kilos to being about 95 kilos, so carried about another 10 kilos, whatever that is in pounds, and got up to 100. So I called myself that I'd go, see, I'm a keg. That's what we call ourselves in Australia, right? But it's not very good, right? So, and it starts to affect, when you carry, and it's usually with men, it's usually you become more top heavy or belly heavy. So I had to start working on that with diet, but also with making sure there's a mixed regime, because I don't believe personally that it's ideal to do the same thing every day. We have a phenomena in ecosystems called intermittent disturbance, or mosaic disturbance, and I think it's the same you should have in your own daily regime. So I do something different every day. Except for I've got an alarm on my phone that every hour, because I do spend a fair bit of time here at a desk, I have to get up and do the alarm goes on my phone and that gets me up and I go and move. Right. So there's shit like that I do.
I do that.
in the morning, and so I have a really good breakfast. This morning I had some biodynamic. I actually brought a little bit of meat with me in my suitcase, but I had some biodynamic beef from a because the meat here is not that good. Unfortunately, it's not very. It's mostly factory farmed and cruelly farmed. So that does, and I need meat. I'm an O positive um, monster. So yeah, so I need red meat. So on I go.
Me
So
too.
I have that, and so I had some this morning. Made some patties, and with some biodynamic sourdough baguettes that I also snuck in my luggage. So
Mm.
life's about living well, my friend. You know, if you can. But the fruit and vegetables in this region are first class. I mean, the little street markets. I mean, I got some beautiful oyster mushrooms here the other day, all sorts of stuff that yeah, it's a really good growing region. So it's just they don't do, most people around the world don't do meat well.
Mm.
It's unfortunately. So I do that, and then I write in my book what I've got to do. So one of the things this company is doing is using a Atlassian what do you call it, program called Jira, which is a project management software.
Mm.
And I must say, I'm probably acting a bit of a dinosaur, and that I'm a slow adopter of that because, well, you know, because I'm a person of my routines. I mean, this thing doesn't run out of batteries. It doesn't matter whether it's this thing doesn't, you know, it runs out of lead, right? And I've got plenty of backup lead in my beautiful, yeah,
I do
exactly.
checklists by
Oh, there
hand.
you go. Oh, right, yeah, yeah, and my beautiful little. This is the only time I went in business class, and they said, "Turn left, Mr. Doherty," and they gave me a set of pajamas and this beautiful toiletries bag, which is a Florence Broadhurst design. She was a wallpaper designer in Sydney and very famous, and that's one of her geometric designs. But that's my pen case. Anyway,
Love
um,
it.
so I, yeah, to sit down. I don't have a checklist like that. I'm not that organized, but I have my book because then I can just carry it. And I've got probably 30 of these, and they're all dated. And that's my, you know, everything I think of is in these job books, right? All my concepts, what I've got to do, my, you know, my to-do list, I suppose you'd call it, and all of that, and then I just get through it.
Do you review them
So.
ever?
Yeah, I do. Because I have to. Well, it was actually, yeah, these black books were the inspiration for the Regans Handbook because it's the same
Ah,
dimensions. I think 8 by 4 inches, more or less. I wanted a black cover, which when Chelsea Green approached me to write a book, I said, "Oh, this is what I want to do." And they go, "No, I don't think we're going to do a black cover." I said, "Well, sorry, we'll self-publish. Thank you very much." God love them; they're lovely people. But anyway, yeah, I just want a black book. Because
yeah.
they said, "Oh, it won't stand out." I said, "Yeah, it'll stand out." Because look at every other fucking book. I mean, look at your books. They're so colourful, they stand out. Mine will be as uncolourful as possible. Kind of
Mm.
like our website, just black and white. So it stands out because it's different. Anyway, yeah, I do go back and look at them. There's lots. I date the top of every page, so I have my own little OCD routines, and that enables me to. I go, who was that person I, you know, had a chat with? So I write all my, you know, my meeting notes and all of those sorts of things. So it's sort of like I'd used to have diaries, but diaries, you know, the pages, you know, you got one page. If you want to carry a diary that's compact, a diary is a date or a page or when I'm at best. So that was a pain in the ass because sometimes you go to a you know a meeting or a conference and you know you might take 10 pages of notes or do drawings or whatever. So yeah, um, I'm I've got them. I go back and I review them or get information or go, oh, yeah, what did I have about that? I also digitize a lot too. I take photos of key designs and then I send them to myself in the Regarians workplace, our work, and then store them on hard drives, like key design stuff. So I've got a digital version I can just pull up because 5 terabyte hard drives. I've got 2 of them I carry around. They also have my digital life, which is all very much organized. I have a pretty cool filing system, I must say.
Heck yeah, I love it.
Well, you
So
need to find, you work in this game. There's so much information. I'm in the
yeah,
content business as much as anything else. So you've got to, you can't be disorganized if you're going to manage content, right? And I'm a
yeah,
polymath. I'm an autodidact polymath. So therefore, I've got to, I've had to develop all myself, right? It's all out of my own head. It's all inspired, of course, because none of us are. And when I say it's out of my head, it's inspired by others into my own head to create um, well, to create even some to innovate filing systems, right, that work for you, so that
yeah,
I can comfortably go, oh, that's where that is, and I can get most things within that I've had in content, important content, I can get within 1 or 2 minutes. So my whole digital catalog, because people go, oh, how do you get that? Well, I'll be doing a meeting and something, and someone will say, oh, and I'll just go click, bang, right? Just give me a minute because it will take a minute because you've got to go down through the file tree to find something, right? But yeah.
that's brilliant. I wish I had done that with
Mm.
my photos at some point, but now there's like 5,000 of them.
Yeah, I know. I know. I do have moments when I go back and where I wasn't as organized like that. Well, I put them in the right box. Like it's one thing putting the photos in a box, but then actually giving them a name or those sorts of protocols. So I've got a whole naming protocol now that I stick to in order to do that. Dates, the whole, yeah. Very nice.
So how do you bounce back? Like when
Mm.
failure hits, especially in a group setting, because you've worked with so many groups and you work with people, so many different people with different motivations. Because part of your work that really rang deeply and true to me was when you did the holistic work on the people themselves and whether they're like even congruent with the project of what they want to do, and you unlocked so many things. And so I see how well you work with people. How do you deal with a failure in a group and bounce back?
Well, try and prevent it at the first place and try and be honest about the prospects of that. I mean, I think the prevention, and I find myself in a lot of situations telling people how things won't work at the outset. I suppose that's one of the benefits of having the broad experiences that I've been fortunate to have in my life, that I can very quickly identify. So, for example, when I was approached to come to this and they were telling me what their numbers were, I'm going, no, no, that's not going to work. And I don't have any fear. So you've got to be sort of fearless to then to just, I'll put it this way. People, and a lot of people don't get this, and I'll say this to young consultants and stuff out there. If someone's invited you, they've already opened your product to say, yes, we believe you, right? Now it's your job to show them why they should believe in you, right? You know what I mean? So if someone signs up to a Matt Powers course, it's because they've already believed you. Now they need to believe in you, right?
Mm.
So you need to prove yourself. So part of that is like in my case, because I'm a fairly confident individual. I always have been, but I've got to also temper that with not being arrogant. And that's something that a lot of people don't have. There's a lot of hubris. There's a lot of when you're doing a lot of stuff that of the kind and the grade that I'm doing, then there's a lot of God. There's a bit of God in it, right? So you've got to be very humble about what you're doing because I tell you, however it works, every time that you get ahead of yourself, it'll happen. And I've had that happen enough times for me to have the genie in my head say that you're being a bit arrogant right now, and it'll pull me back. And that's all instantaneous. But that's that's something you. I mean, it'll be interesting with our son Zane, because he and I are quite alike, but he's also quite like his mother, and he's himself, right? I mean, kids, everyone's their own individual person. There's the nature nurture, as you know. But um, he I think at the same stage he's got more humility than I had when I was not a humble person when I was 22, right? At all. That's just me not having the right mentors around me, or not listening and just being arrogant, right? So that's something that I had to work on, and
Yeah.
I got worked into me by force by people giving me feedback, right? So yeah. Anyway,
I feel that.
so when you get to trying to prevent failure, that's where I see it. I mean, I actually don't have many failures because I don't let things get to that point generally,
Mm,
or I can see the writing on the wall happen and go, fuck, because so much of my work is in scenario management, right? It's in scenario prediction, it's in developing workflows, and I'm a process logic thinker, so I'm probably a bit linear according to some metrics, but there is a process, there is a workflow, and there's a step by step for most things that we do. And then there's shit that happens along the way, right? And there's always unintended consequences, and the complexity of nature, and the complexity of the climate, and people, and all the rest of it that you just cannot predict, right? You just happily moseying along, and then something bang. COVID was a great, the disruptions, right? So disruptions can be small, they can be large. As my friend Dick Richardson says, small change equals small change, big change equals big change, right? So you've got to be aware of those elements. And when you pattern out a workflow or some sort of work process, or to a job, let's say we're going to plant some trees on our farm, right? Well, there's a whole set of steps involved there, right? And you need to map that out so that you can budget it, you can time budget it, you can do this at the right time, and get that whole sequencing right. And then something happens at every, as I was saying to someone yesterday, because we had someone not follow a direction, and I said, it's like, I said to Dr. Surindra, my agroforestry colleague, I said, it's like sanding. You don't put the lacquer, you don't put the oil on the wood until you've first sanded it, right? You don't do the sand, there's a sequence to everything,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. There's these undeniable sequences, right? So you don't plant the tree until the ground has been appropriately prepared, right? Hello, right? So yeah, so failure is not something I come across, I suppose. It's little, where I see failures, it's little failures in the whole, as opposed to some, as Bill Mollison used to call, a type 1 error or a clusterfuck, right? Um, and they happen because people have, going to the question of agreeableness in humans, is that sometimes if you're the client and you've got the money and you've got the power, then you can just motor along until you reach the edge of the cliff and then go over it, and then you blame everyone else, right, including you, the consultant. So I don't want to go over that cliff with that prick. So I will, if I work with someone, I will very quickly assess their personality. Are they a process logic thinker? If they're not, who is? Do I become that person for them? Because they might be really high on innovation, and innovators are not very good at following protocols or following processes. I'm rare because I'm an innovator who is also, I'm very much into process. I get very, I would have to say I'm probably on the spectrum of something. I probably would have been medicated as a child if I was alive today, if I was a young person today. But you have to be to manage manage all of it. Well, I think I do anyway. I don't know. Probably need to go get analysed, do I, man? Go to California and someone will tell me, or New Mexico or something. But yeah,
Well,
you got to. Yeah, I've got to be strong about that, and people have got to be strong. I don't think people are not strong enough a lot of the time. They say yes too often, and it's okay to say no. You'll have more power. Not that that's what it. Power is an interesting thing in that it's not power from an arrogance point of view. It's power in terms of you having your voice. And that's what we say to a lot of the young people here. Like India, there's the history of the caste system in the Hindu culture. This is not a Hindu region, but there's still this respect of elders, right? So there's all of those cultural, psychocultural elements which are part of us, which then mean that if you're a young person, then you don't speak up often. You speak quietly and you speak with salutations of to your elders and so on. Like they call me sir. I said, no, don't call me sir. That's English, right? Um, I'm Irish, Australian, egalitarian. Just call me Darren, right? Or Dazza. All good. They still do. They can't help it. But I say, what I want you to do is do not ever be afraid to use your voice. Right? It's the one thing. It's one of the greatest things that we have as humans, and please use it because everyone is valid. The worst thing to me in probably the thing that gets me upset about something more than anything else is disenfranchisement of people. And when people don't feel okay to use their voice, then that hurts me personally. That's yeah.
yeah, I feel that.
Mm.
Wow.
So, but that's a very
So
important thing that goes across the board. So when yeah.
will that be in the manual, in the later sections of the manual, any of that? Because there's a
Well, we're redoing the climate section because we wrote that in 2013, 14. And yeah, there's certainly some newer stuff that's going in that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, because I think that like you said, certainly young people, definitely have to like digest that, but I think even for adults, that's something that they need to digest. I think that I mean, value the psychology. I studied developmental psychology and educational psychology. That was what my master's was in. And understanding people and seeing them more clearly is really what that is. It really changes the tenor of a conversation and the buffering and space you can
Mm,
create around yourself
mm,
and between your decisions and your actions and emotions. Yeah, so that's
yeah.
awesome. So,
Yeah, well, and I mean, a lot of that is just from working with so many people and being aware and just being awake. Um, I mean, I value life, so um, that's why I'm not obsessive about it, but I do try and make sure that I'm healthy.
mhm.
Um, Thanks be to God that I am, because I see friends who have dropped off, or I look at them and go, "Fuck, you are ticking right at the same age," and it's like, wow, you can't touch your toes. And I remember my grandfather. He classic case. He was a great man. He was a tinkerer as well, but he when he was in his 60s or 70s, he instead of having a regime of stretches so that he could reach his toes and put his socks on, he invented a contraption, as he would call it, so he could put his socks on. I mean, that is such a classic way of Western male, whatever, thinking. I will not work on myself. I will create a machine that enables me to continue to not deal with myself. God rest his soul. He was a great man. I miss him greatly. That's I think about him often. And, he'd say, "Oh, it's all part of the dilapidation, Dazza." He'd say. So there was but you see people here, and people here. They not that they live necessarily a lot longer, but at least they're elastic. I mean, I
Hmm.
hate the idea of someone else having to put my socks on, right, or tie my shoelaces, you know. So there's that sort of dignity, I suppose, that goes with all of that, which is interesting. Yeah,
Well, I certainly
self
have had to embrace more physical depth in my routine. I do a sauna, I do the cold plunge, do qigong and yoga. It's all vital. If I take one thing out, it's like I suffer.
Damn. Yeah, our son does the cold plunging stuff and the saunas. I don't like it. I don't know. But anyway, everyone finds their groove. Whatever makes you happy. That's yeah, and makes it worth. Yeah, you got to get your own feedback, and that's what you're saying. If you don't do one element, then you pay for it. Yeah, I'm the
Yeah.
same. I was lazy over Christmas, and my back pain came back.
Hmm.
I sat down for 4 days and did absolutely nothing. Just lied on a couch, read a few of my friends. Greg Barron is a plug for you, Greg. His wonderful books, and then I drove 12 hours to my sister-in-law's. Sat on she's got a beautiful house by the beach in New South Wales. It rained the whole time, so we were indoors for most of the time, and it was warm because it's summer,
Oh.
um, but it was torrential rain. It was great, and she's got this beautiful deck with a lovely. It's about I don't know about a kilometre back from the beach, but the view of the ocean and the lakes, the estuarine lakes. It's a really beautiful spot. And yeah, I took my books and laid on a nice couch there and drove home. And the next morning I went, "Oh." And I thought, that's what happens, you lazy bastard.
I know this. Yeah.
Anyway, all good.
Well, and my son is a jujitsu blue belt now, so he always wants to like attack me physically.
Felt you.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's so much stronger than me. And yeah, so it's a reality. If I want to keep up, if I want to stay limber or be able to win the respect of my child, I have to be more physical and put on more muscle somehow. Eh, So that's my mission right now. I
Well,
am.
I can highly recommend the PTP resistance band. Seeing we're doing a bit of product placement today, that I'll get nothing out of that, or neither will you. But the PTP resistance bands, they are bloody fantastic. They're just
Mm,
I carry them in my kit, and they're a little kit. They're like surgical rubber,
hmm
and you can connect them to a door, or you can just connect them, and they're different diameters, so you can and then you can connect. They've got little carabiners, so you
okay.
can just clip and you just clip them onto anything, and then you can do
That's
everything
awesome.
with your legs. You've got the ankle bracelet things. You can do all your stuff. They're fantastic. But for me, traveling, it's really helpful because I mean I can't stand the idea of going to gyms and all that sort of shit. I mean it's just the time. I mean I have to go there and blah 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 and then come back. I just don't want to fill my day with that. So being able to do stuff, that's why yoga is so good because you just need a floor, right?
Yeah.
You just need a surface.
Though
And
I
you don't even
find
need a
that
mat. You can use
pull-ups,
a towel. I just use a towel half the time. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, where can we learn more
I
about
don't need. I can't do yoga. I haven't got my really nice yoga mat. It's like get a fucking life. I mean, Jesus.
those things? Those squishy yoga mats are not even good for people. So,
Yeah, well, I'm sure that if someone was to do a what do you call it, a biopsy on them, they wouldn't be too flash.
yeah.
You could
Yeah,
do some. Oh,
they shed
you could do
microplastics.
a bit of microscopy and DNA analysis on a mat.
Indeed. Well, I am so appreciative of you taking the time. Is there a place that you want to send folks? Is there going to be another rec soon, or is it perennial? Is there a time of year that people sign up?
Yeah, well, we're going to our eldest daughter Isabella, who's had the injury. She's coming to work. Well, she's always been a director of Agrarians, but she's had a lot of other projects, and she wants to take on a role in doing some admin and whatnot. So she's organising the next Rex, I hope. We're catching up with her to do that. Now it's the new year, but we're going to shift a bit because like this project needs me, and I'm enjoying it. It's really enjoying it. We've got 150 people just on our immediate team, right? So it's pretty cool, and most of them are under. So it's they're eager. It's great to see eagerness amongst people, right? So for someone of my vintage to be who still thinks of myself as a young person to be actually working with actual young people is really cool, and getting that vibe. And also giving them, I mean, they're really keen to learn, which is awesome. So and so as I am, I'm keen to learn, and they're keen to learn. So that's a good match. It's a beautiful environment. I don't generally like the tropics, but we're at 1,800 meters above sea level here, so the high tropics, high altitude tropics are very very nice climates, and if you look out across the world, there's some of the places where the greatest food and biological diversity has come from. So there's a lot of that here. There's a Royal Bengal tiger that's come back in this region, which is fucking awesome too. How about that?
That's
So there's all
amazing. We've
these
got those
keystone.
corridors.
Yeah, well, I'm going out of a bloody night. That's for bloody sure. Those things are 300 kilos. Have you seen the size of a tiger's teeth? No, bugger that.
You got to walk
Um,
confidently and wear the mask on the back of your head, right? Remember the mask on the back of the head?
I walk confidently, but he'd probably look at me and go, "Geez, he looks like I'd get a good feed out of him. There'd be a bit of fat coverage."
It's keto.
and, and he can't run and climb trees like he used to. Yeah. No. Yeah. So I'll with the Rex, we're going to change that up a bit. We've done 11 now, so we've got a lot in the can as far as all the recordings are concerned and stuff. But we're going to get others to teach it, which is I'm
Mm.
pretty excited about. Which is kind of what we did in the first couple. And I'm happy. I'm looking forward to sort of resurrecting that concept because I get tired of listening to my own voice, as strangely as it might sound. Um, well, when you teach the same thing, you would know this, and you're in autopilot, and I don't like that because I kind of feel that I'm not authentic, and that's yeah, and
Yeah.
and I'm not, and therefore I'm not being respectful because people are paying for this stuff, right? So yeah. Anyway, I feel that there's all of those feelings that come into it as well as the need
Timing is so
to get more
essential.
voice.
The
Yeah.
seasons of our life. I don't set like permanent seasons for timing for any courses or anything in my life. I choose what it will be when it is.
Yeah, same. Well, it's got no. I do it to suit me. Yeah, it's got to suit me. If it doesn't suit me, then I'm not going to be right. And it's my course. I'm delivering something to somebody else. And yeah, so that's just how it works, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
and
I,
that's
I
what
value
people got
that
to.
so
I
much.
suppose that's the messaging. I suppose is that you got to be true to yourself. And um, as Javan Bernakovic says, if you're not designing your life, then someone else is, right? So and these are all things which are important. So yeah, start with you as an individual and your own health and well-being and voice and so on, and then and get your get your power, not just mat power, but get your power, and off you go, right?
Yes, I love it. Thank you so much.
Enfranchise yourself. Enfranchise yourself.
Hmm. Empower and franchise growth.
So vote this year. So vote in the US elections. Vote, you bastards. We have compulsory voting in Australia, but you only 40% of you vote. Crikey.
We, there's a lot of things that we need to fix with that whole system, like going back to paper ballots where they like physically count, like we can watch you while it's all happening. Yeah. I think it was Taiwan that just did an election that everyone's like, this is how you do it. So yeah, there's a lot of that. But the greatest
Mm.
thing about this time period is that people are aware, that people are feeling these needs, that people are calling these things out, people are speaking out, and we're being able to communicate and hear each other online and in person. That we really have more power than we allow ourselves to have in so many different ways. And I'm really excited for the changes I'm seeing. And I'm so excited for your
Yeah.
project. I think I speak for everyone when I say that it is wildly like unfathomable the scale. Like I can't like grasp that, and I can actually put that into
Yeah.
like, it just keeps going.
Got a big map. I printed out uh, there's a really great printer. He does vinyl printing.
Hmm.
So he printed aerial photo or satellite image, and it's like 8 foot by 5 foot the image. It's like you see sign writers do vinyl wrapping of vehicles and shit. It's the same tech that does that, but I've just got a Google Earth map with all of our projects on it. So we've got all of our plantation sites and all of our farm planting sites and all of our nurseries, so that we can connect the dots. Because as I say, every tree, that tree in a pot has a home somewhere. It's full time home for the next 100 years, right? So where is that? And but so a lot of logistics that are involved in all of that sort of decision making. But the projects, Tom and Chow and the team at Earthbank are doing an amazing job with building the project and in other places. I think we're going to Kenya next. Well, Kenya not going to. We've already started in Kenya, so that'll be the next place, and there'll be inevitably others. So one of the one of the one of the countenances to failure is success, right? And what does success mean? Well, success usually means that you become attractive, and right, and that means that you then get more projects. Yeah. So my probably outside of the likes of P.A. Yeomans and all of those sorts of characters who are even though I never met him, my main inspirations in what I do. Another guys I think I might have talked to you about, Capability Brown, Lancelot Capability Brown. You've not heard of him? Looking by that face. Oh wow, you need to look up him. I can't remember when I probably heard of him maybe 30 years ago. So he lived in the 1700s and was one of the first landscape architects. Bit like me, untrained, well, kind of got trained. You might say he did the permaculture courses of the day, right? He he did a few key apprenticeships and that sort of thing. Others who are probably listening to this who are capability brown scholars would know better, but he worked on in the 1700s on the estates of the newly rich of England, largely rich because they were, at that time the East India Company was going hammer and tong here, and all of that wealth was being transferred there, right? So there was like this whole new rich, and they were super rich, and they'd buy these estates, which were their status, right? You got
Yeah.
because you could buy your lordship, you could get your estate, 2 or 3 thousand acres of land, your servants, you bought blah blah, right? So what he did, he was the landscape designer for those people, and he would write. He had I can't remember, but he had hundreds of projects that he did, and they're all protected landscapes now. And his whole essence was that he would the landscapes that he developed. The French didn't like him. The French were all geometric, and everything was all about exerting control over nature. His landscapes, he designed them so they looked natural. They looked as if they were nature.
This is the guy that
So,
Byron Joel was getting into like 7 years ago, right? 6 years ago.
yeah. I talked about that's yeah.
The
So
painting,
Byron, I introduced Capability Brown to Byron. Yeah. So anyway, so
beautiful
he's been an
paintings.
inspiration. Oh yeah, his landscapes. I've got lords, I've got clients in the UK who've got Capability Brown landscapes, and to walk through those, 200 years later, it's fucking cool. Like, but the
Wow.
point being is, he did all of that on horseback. He did it all. You think of all the things that we do today and how many obstacles we put out in front of ourselves. But we've got bulldozers, we've got cars, we've got internet, we've got mobile phone. We've got all of these apparatus. There's no one as prolific as him today,
Mm.
right? He would ride 100 miles horseback to go from one job to another, right? You think, harden the fuck up, right?
Yeah.
But also organizationally, all of the nurseries, because he had, it's basically the same job, just without all of the accoutrements that we have today,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that
So
I totally want to, just because of the whole riding a horse to and fro and being on horseback and doing all the work. I'm going to tell James about this because my son James, he did all this work with me, and now he's older. He's looking at other things. He wants to do different career things, but I know the horse will draw him back because he started riding when he was 4 or 5. Started working with wild mustangs and training them around that age.
you
So,
go to, do you know Butch Tyndall?
hmm?
Do you know Butch Tyndall?
uh, Maybe
He's out your way. I'll connect you with him on the workplace, but he's got a yeah. He should also consider if he's I don't know how old is he?
he's 17. People who
He
wrestled
could
him say he's farm strong.
if he still I'll hook you up with Butch Tyndall because he does animal power stuff. Because that's a whole I love that stuff. But then Stirling College in Vermont, which is liberal arts college up there that I did a Rex in 2016. That's where I met Harry Green of Propagate and Jeremy Kaufman and all those boys. They came and did Harry did the Rex there. So Stirling College has a animal power elective, so you can
Hmm.
go there and do your college and learn how to train horses, train cows or ox, etc., to do all of that sort of stuff. There's some wonderful resources out there. I'll just finish because I know you've got time. I've got to get on with things as well. But the point I suppose I was ultimately making with Capability Brown was that his early successes then led to other successes. I haven't read of his failures. I mean, I haven't. I'm not a scholar of him, but as much as say I am of Yeoman's, I've been more much because he's more contemporary to me. So there's more. I've got a lot of Yeoman's letters and stuff, right? So I can.
Hmm.
And I know people who knew him and worked with him. I don't know anyone who worked with Capability Brown. That's impossible, right? So, but when he got his successes in a slow growing environment, right?
Hmm.
Other new people would come along and take him on, and so that's I suppose what happens here is that you get enfranchised by people enfranchising you, and you know, so just be aware of that and not play it, but work it
Pay it
and
forward.
respect it and honor it. They're things that happen. People put faith in you, will deliver on that faith and be faithful. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Darren.
No, my pleasure, mate. Well, thanks for the opportunity. It's always wonderful to talk to you, and I'm glad to hear that But you probably need to fill that t-shirt out a bit.
Ah, I
But
get that from my
you're a
son.
fine fellow. You're a fine fellow too. Some of us are. I was a bit finer when I was younger. How old are you now?
I'm 42, almost 43.
42. Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't know whether you'll ever get fat.
My granddad did get a little bit of a paunch, but that was when he was in his 80s.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, there you go. You're just a fine fellow. People
eh.
just you'll just be walking along the street. People go, gee, he looks like a fine fellow.
Oh man.
All right.
Well, my son's perspective is opposite. He looks around and sees who he can choke out and who he can't choke out. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm the one he disregards.
Yeah, yeah,
No threat.
yeah. Yeah. You're the soft toy. Yeah, there you go.
The breakable one. Yeah. Yeah, he went to World Championships this past year in Vegas, so he's all about it.
As a
But
as a participant or as a witness?
as a participant,
Wow.
he did two world champions. Depends on the league we're talking about, ADCC and BJFF. He or BJJF. He got through the first round at the JJF one, and then the second round he got beaten by the guy who won the whole thing. So that was like a little bit of
Yeah, right.
consolation there. But that's my boy, he just
Still,
wants to like, prove his strength.
light it up.
So I
Right.
have to try to keep up.
He could be uh, a power permaculture sponsored UFC fighter or something.
They're going to be sponsoring him. That's already happening.
Oh,
And
there you go. Good on you.
yeah, it's wild. It's wild. There's there's so many people doing so many things and focusing on health. And so you've got people that are interested in permaculture that are also biohacking, also mycology, also, just they're all about health. I in this conference we have Dr. Robert Floyd, who's a regenerative medicine doctor who's also a regenerative rancher. And his whole thing is about how there's a direct connection between the medicine and the food.
Yeah,
And so it's really exciting because of the opportunities for all different learning modalities. I mean, you talk of your brain, the logical sequence. Growing up, I didn't have any of that. I had to train and learn all that. That's what my whole teaching thing was, creating curriculum and alignment. That's where I got all of mine. And then I saw you doing it and I was like, okay, I need this rigor. And in anyone who's watching this that wants to go to the highest level of regenerative business planning, regardless of what you're doing, whether you're ranching or farming or doing an orchard, land planning, and the whole thing. Like that's the thing that impressed me the most was you talked about legacy. It was a holistic perspective. When Javin was
what did you?
part of Rex, you guys had the legacy aspect. That's still in there,
Oh,
right?
legacy. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
You're like, what did
Well,
I
that's.
learn?
I mean, who's going to walk through your fields in 200 years, right?
Right.
And are they fields that are going to that are going to still have? I don't. It's an interesting one because it's sort of like you're being a bit of a punt, by saying something like that. But it is like I'll put it to you this way. Yesterday, this town is very hilly, and I was out on my bike. We had to go and visit a facility, a Department of Agriculture facility, and I was in an area I wasn't familiar with. One thing I do, even in cities, is I pay attention to the landscape. So I still deconstruct. I take away all of the
Buildings.
buildings, and it's still a landscape of valleys and ridges. Main ridge. I'm a key liner at heart from that sort of perspective. So the guys were saying to me, "Oh, how are you going to get home?" I said, "Don't worry about me, mate. Yeah, I've been finding my way home since I was a little boy, so don't worry about that." Anyway, because I pay attention. That's one thing when you're on a motorbike, you know, you got more awareness than when you're in a car,
Yeah.
especially when you're driving a car. It's more difficult to pay attention completely to the landscape than it is on a motorbike, because a motorbike, you've just got, motorbikes are like a video game. They're really cool from that perspective. So anyway, I was driving along and I saw a tree. I know there's a Eucalyptus citradora, which is up on this main ridge in a suburb called Leightoncraft. And I just stopped and I passed on. There it is. Now, the legacy of that is somebody 100 odd years ago planted that tree, and now that's a landmark. That person probably didn't do that because of that. They probably got the tree as a gift or something like that, but that's a legacy of that intent,
Hmm.
right? That an unknown Aussie comes along in a place he probably shouldn't be, who uses that tree as a place marker, to that doesn't need a map to get to, because I just need to stop. Right, I know when I get up on the ridge, oh, there it is. Not that far now, because I know where that tree is, and that tree then leads me to where I do know. So, I think that one of the things that I get really encouraged by is that prospect of someone coming along and finding that tree that was planted. Just like when we were kids at primary school, they bloody bulldozed it. Unfortunately, we did a plantation in the 70s. There was a bit of a program where primary schools were given a bunch of trees to plant, and you'd plant a little plantation. And that plantation was at that school until probably the noughties, and then they decided to expand the classrooms. But we could go back to that. There's they're touchstones, right?
Hmm.
So the sort of perennial work that we do. Soils are different because soil, and that's where the scale of permanence, unfortunately, is, right. If you don't keep looking after soils, well, then they won't, depending on the climate, but generally they won't get better. They'll just go into stasis, and that stasis won't be at the high level that you've taken them to. It'll go back and then stay, right? Or they'll degrade. Right? So depending on the climate and the conditions. So whereas trees, when you put them in, you have to do a lot to change the environment for that tree to die,
Mm.
right? That's why I suppose I've always loved trees from that perspective, among because they're the most permanent of the biology.
Woo, we need good trees. I grew up surrounded by 100-foot oak trees, and they're all dying right
Oh,
now in my mom's house.
yeah, well,
New England.
yeah, yeah, on you're right, New England, right?
Yeah. So it's hard. I think that
Lack of disturbance, probably.
in part, and also they've just everything just shrinks the amount of soil into these buckets, as the suburbs encroach more and more and
Oh,
the
yeah, 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 yeah.
the urbanization
Yeah,
spreads.
the biodiversity loss of insects in particular is, talk about a silent spring. Yeah.
So your work is so
I can ride
important,
around here. There should be so many bugs here. I can ride here with my visor up.
but
I
oh,
drove 9 hours last year through the centre of it, through the main one of the main growing areas of New South Wales, and I did not have to clean my windscreen.
ooh.
Yeah, it's not good. Yeah, and it can't end well. So, Billy Gates, when you're watching this, mate, and your fancy ideas about controlling a mosquito, what a fuckwit, you know, really, what a fuckwit. Yeah. Anyway,
We have to do
God
more.
love you.
I feel like we have to do more to take back control of our lives by not letting people make decisions for us that are fundamental to the health of ourselves and the health of our food and the health of our ecosystem, soil, and
Yeah,
water. I think that's what needs, that's a fundamental, because
yeah.
that's
Or
a
just
part of
enjoy.
our natural rights.
So I know we're well over time, but one of the so you asked me about how we start with people,
Mm.
and we start with trying to establish people's individual holistic context, and then as a family and so on, or an enterprise. And I haven't done the statistics, but we've literally done thousands of these now, right? Thousands of these questions. So it's a fairly good sample. And talking with other people who've done it, it's similar. But um, most people say that what's important to them is an improvement in their own personal health and well-being, an improvement in their family well-being, financial security, and well-being, generally, good relationships, and then an increase in biodiversity. And we probably at Regrarians, of all of the organisations who work in this space, we've probably got the most diverse array, because we're not just, most people who do holistic management, if they go and do a holistic management, most of them are professional graziers. But we have agroforesters, we have, you've seen, we've got a really diverse coterie of people, which is amazing. In itself, there's diversity in that. But most of those people say they want biodiversity. So, and you can't just click your fingers and get biodiversity, especially when it's diminishing all around us with this massive extinction event that's going on at the hands of the industries. Yeah, yeah. So let's do that.
Let's bring it back. Let's bring back the biodiversity. 100%. Well, thank you, Darren. I can't wait to see this all unfold. Is there going to be a documentary?
Oh, that's a good. Probably. The head of the Hill Farmers Union is a really cool dude called Commander Schlangpiang. It's his name. The most amazing names up here. The guy I get my fresh raw milk from just down the road here. They comes in a little Suzuki van at between 8 and 9 in the morning and 4 and 6 in the evening. Freshly milked cows, blah blah blah. It's really good. I take my little stainless steel 3 litre pails with me and fill them up.
Mm.
And he makes curd as well, and uh, gulab, which is a sweetened farm cheese that they put in a jaggery syrup. It's really good as a dessert. You heat them up. It's sort of like a cheese dumpling. It's quite. You can get that if you. They're pretty common in Indian restaurants anyway. So he has all of that. His name's Green Star. We've got a farmer. One of the farms that we work with. His name is Shipstar. So they've a lot of the Christian name or first name, and they are Christians mostly, but they're a lot of them you have these really interesting first names, and then their family name.
Wow.
So yeah, yeah, it's really cool.
That's fun.
One guy called Sit Down, Thank You, who I mentioned, who I have. So there's thousand stars. Yeah, lots of different names. But Commander is a filmmaker, and he'll be helping us probably. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I can't wait for it. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us in our future.
Thanks, mate. Well, same to you. I know it's your night time. It's been lovely to speak to you, and thank you to all of you for supporting Matt and his wonderful work. And I hope the Our Future project goes really, really well. Look forward to 25.
Heck yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Good on you, mate. Take care.
You too.